In 2009, a monster was born on the internet, created in about 10 minutes by one guy for a photo. He wasn't based on an old legend. He wasn't rooted in centuries-old folklore. He didn't exist at all until a Tuesday in June. And within 5 years, two 12-year-old girls lured their friend into the woods and stabbed her 19 times to prove he was real. This is the true story of Slender Man, the first monster the internet ever built from scratch, and the real crime that followed him out of the forums and into the woods. On June 8, 2009, a comedy forum called Something Awful launched a photo contest. The theme, take ordinary photographs and edit them to look paranormal, fake ghost sightings, doctored evidence, the kind of thing you'd see on a late-night conspiracy show. 2 days later, a user posting under the name Victor Surge submitted 2 black and white photos. Each one showed a group of children, and in the background of both, barely noticeable at first glance, stood a tall, impossibly thin figure in a black suit. No face, just blank, pale skin where features should be. Victor Surge's real name was Eric Knudsen, and he didn't just post the images, he added short captions, written as if they were witness statements. Fragments of testimony from something terrible that had already happened. One read, "We didn't want to go, we didn't want to kill them, but its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." That was it. That was the entire origin. No mythology, no ancient story, just 2 edited photos and a couple of unsettling sentences posted to a comedy forum as a contest entry. Knudsen later said the idea came together fast, inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's horror writing, old folklore about faceless, shadow people, and Stephen King. His goal, in his own words, was to create something whose motivations can barely be comprehended, something built purely to unsettle. He named the figure Slender Man, and then something happened that Knudsen never planned for. The internet took it from there. Within 10 days, a completely different group of people had already built an entire mythology around a monster that was, at that point, barely a week old. Just 10 days after Knudsen's original post, a YouTube channel called Marble Hornets uploaded its first video. It was styled like found footage, a film student's abandoned project, discovered and reposted by a friend, documenting a stalking presence the series called The Operator. It never explicitly said Slender Man, but the connection was obvious. From there, it spread the way internet folklore spreads, fast and with no single author. Slender Man moved from Something Awful to 4chan to Reddit to dedicated creepypasta websites. Different writers added different details. Some gave him tentacles. Some said he caused memory loss or a cough, known in the mythology as slender sickness. None of it was official because there was no canon to check against, just a shared character that thousands of strangers were building simultaneously. In 2012, an indie video game called Slender the 8 Pages let players experience being stalked by the character directly. It was downloaded 2 million times in its first month. By that point, Slender Man wasn't a creepypasta anymore. He was a genuine piece of modern pop culture. Arguably the first horror icon created entirely by the internet from scratch, with no source material older than a forum thread. And critically, almost everyone who encountered him understood he was fiction. Most participants in the Slender Man mythology deliberately played along with the idea that he might be real. The same way people enjoy a ghost story or a horror movie, fully aware it's not true. For most people who told Slender Man stories, that's exactly where it stayed. A story. For 2 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin, it didn't. On May 31st, 2014, 2 12-year-old girls, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire, invited a classmate to a sleepover in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The next day, the three walked into a nearby wooded area. According to investigators, Geyser and Wire then attacked their friend, stabbing her 19 times. The victim survived. 2 of her wounds struck major organs, 1 missed a major artery by less than a millimeter. Left in the woods, she managed to crawl to a nearby bike path where a passing cyclist found her and got her help. When investigators questioned the 2 girls, their explanation centered entirely on Slender Man. They told police they were trying to become his proxies, servants who proved their loyalty through violence and believed the attack was necessary to protect their families from him. They said they'd discovered him on a creepypasta website and had been planning the attack for months. Morgan Geyser was later diagnosed with childhood-onset schizophrenia and had reportedly described believing she had mind control abilities. In 2017, she pleaded guilty to attempted first-degree homicide and was committed to a Wisconsin mental health facility for up to 40 years. Anissa Wire reached a separate plea agreement and was also committed to a mental institution. Wire was granted supervised release in 2021, Geyser was granted supervised release in 2025. Eric Knudsen, the creator of Slender Man, issued a public statement after the attack. "I am deeply saddened by the tragedy in Wisconsin," he said, "and my heart goes out to the families of those affected by this terrible act." He declined to give interviews about the case. The stabbing triggered a nationwide moral panic. Parents and news outlets debated the influence of internet horror fiction on children, and creepypasta websites began adding fiction disclaimers to their content. A character built in 10 minutes for a joke on a comedy forum that ended up 5 years later at the center of one of the most disturbing true crime cases connected to internet culture in American history. Slender Man isn't an old legend dressed up in a new format. He's something rarer and, in some ways, more unsettling. A monster with a documented birth certificate. We know the exact day he was created. We know the name of the person who made him. We know it took the internet less than 2 weeks to turn one man's photo contest entry into a shared mythology that felt, to millions of people, like something ancient. And we know that for 2 children in Wisconsin, the line between story and reality didn't hold. Most people who tell scary stories around a fire know exactly where the fire ends and the dark begins. This is what happens on the rare occasion that line disappears.